the most anticipated earnings releases for the week of January 6, 2025. Presented by Earnings Whispers. After 2 weeks of essentially no earnings news, we will get a warm-up for earnings season with about 40 companies reporting this week. It is also guidance season, so look for a number of earnings pre-announcements. During this week last year, there were over 100 earnings pre-announcements, so that 40 number is a lowball. If you looked at this calendar a couple of weeks ago, it looked a lot different than it does now because the market will now be closed on Thursday to honor President Carter. The SEC won't accept filings on Thursday, and many releases previously scheduled have already been rescheduled for Wednesday or Friday. It shouldn't be a surprise if the others follow. There is only one scheduled on Monday, and Commercial Metals Company will report early in the morning. The company missed estimates last quarter, and it isn't very often the company has missed 2 quarters in a row. In addition, the consensus estimate implies margins are going to be at 5-year lows, so an upside surprise shouldn't really be a surprise. On the other hand, it isn't exactly a bull market for the steel companies, so it probably won't change the story much either. RPM International tops the list on Tuesday. It is interesting because, after reporting positive results last quarter, the stock rallied to new highs, but has now pulled back to just about the exact same spot it was before it reported previously. We almost said the same thing about AZZ, which briefly filled that election day gap, but it started turning higher again last week. There are 2 different gap stories on Wednesday, starting with Acuity Brands, which is holding its earnings gap, while Jefferies has shown relative strength following its own election day gap higher. It looks to be an important read-through into some of its early reporting peers as it presses to new highs. As of right now, KB Home says they will report Thursday afternoon. We are doubtful. On the other hand, the stock has made a rather significant reversal, and the homebuilders have been laggards. Perhaps they just don't want anyone to know what their earnings were during the quarter, and will report while the U.S. mourns President Carter. Accolade is also currently scheduled to report after the close on Thursday. As of now, speaking of an ugly chart, the stock gapped lower on earnings a couple of quarters ago and has flatlined. There is a positive, though, because earnings have been trending higher, particularly after its upside surprise last quarter. And another positive earnings announcement would provide some fundamental support for the stock. You've got to wait for that price action, though. Delta was supposed to be the only company reporting earnings on Friday. Don't know if you realize this or not, but the airlines have outperformed AI in 2024, and while that might limit the upside in 2025, results are still expected to be positive this quarter. Tilray, on the other hand, has had a good year for revenue growth, but has yet to make any progress on the bottom line, and the stock recently hit new lows. While earnings pick up this week, we are still one optionable stock shy of filling up our chart of those with the highest volatility, and there aren't really a lot standing out. E2 Open, however, has option traders pricing in a 65% move going into earnings. Of course, after disappointing results last quarter, the stock has fallen to new lows, and that volatility mostly just reflects math on low numbers. But after such a large move last quarter, traders are leaning towards another large move. As is usual this early in the quarter, there are still a lot of important names that haven't officially scheduled earnings yet, and we don't include unofficial dates in these calendars, but we can still clearly see the start of earnings season next week.